guys, Natalie with the Fifth Journey, and we are back for foundations. Make sure that you've watched the previous videos before moving on to this one because they all tie in together. Now this one is, I don't want to say controversial, but there's a lot of different schools of thought, and we're going to be talking about the Battement. And the Battement leads us into our leaps, but it starts with our tendus and dégagés, and then that center floor work, the pliés and the jumps is so part of that. All of these things that we do at the bar help us with later movements. The reason why I say the Battement is a little bit controversial is because of our thigh muscle or quadricep. There are people who say don't squeeze your quadricep, and there are people who say you have to squeeze your quadricep. Both of them are true, and different parts of the exercise, you will engage different parts of your muscle. So going with the Grand Battement is a big beat. You're beating the air with your leg. It is a kick. And we've talked about tendus, we've talked about dégagé, and the tendu is the movement of moving outward to the lift, and the dégagé is the inward motion. So you have both of those. Hopefully you've been training your muscles to do that. Now, where the quadricep comes in is, and I do not say to squeeze your quadricep when doing a Battement. That doesn't mean you don't use it though, because if I'm here and I squeeze my quadricep, it's going to stop my leg. Yes, you must squeeze it to extend and point through everything, but there's a difference between squeezing and lifting. You can engage, but you don't have to squeeze. So just doing a Battement, I'm going to have you do just some swinging motion. So you want to hold on to a chair or a bar or whatever, and I'm just going to have you swing the leg. And as you're doing this, I want you to think about supporting your supporting leg, lifting up through that leg. Try not to let your ankle rotate too much. Now, when I'm doing this, working the floor, I'm still flexing and pointing my foot. Now, as you're doing this, why I'm having you do this is you're not squeezing your quadricep, right? You can feel it working, but you're not squeezing it. So now I want you to squeeze it. So as soon as you squeeze it, it stops that motion, right? If you do that motion on a leap, your leg is going to stop right there. It's not going to have the freedom of going up, right? So that is something that I want you to do. If you feel that on your Grand Battement that you're squeezing too much, go back to the bar and just swing your leg, because that is going to free up those muscles. Focus on your foot pointing and making sure that leg is straight. I'm still lifting up through my knee, but I'm not squeezing my quadricep, okay? We talked about that lift before already. So really focus on that. Once you've done that a few times, I want you to do a nice plie. So I'm in a very, very wide fourth, almost like a lunge. So I have my front leg bent in a turnout position. My back leg is straight, and I'm going to press up. And then I actually want you to go to tendu. Plie, press up, and you can bend both legs if you want. So if you want to go through here, or you can keep that back leg straight. So I want you to practice brushing here, right? So still going through that first position, because that motion is going to keep that leg, that quadricep nice and loose, so we can get a nice high Battement. Now we're only working on devant right now because we will use something different to the side and derriere. So once you feel that movement, I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit on what I say in the combinations. I know you've heard me say use the floor. This motion is exactly what I mean by using the floor with momentum. So when I'm in first position, I visualize, okay, this feeling of swinging the leg up, my leg is coming, something's whacking behind me to get the leg up, right? Okay? So when I'm in first position, I have to visualize that coming behind me to get to my leg up. So I'm pressing through the floor. It's the exact same motion, okay? I don't want to use my hip. I'm not doing that. And I'm also not squeezing my quadricep, right? If you forget that feeling of coming up behind you, go back to that lunge or do a tendu, plie, and then up, okay? That will help so much. We'll do second last, I think. So derriere, just the same thing, but really the opposite way, okay? So I'm gonna have, let's see, so we're gonna swing here. I'm going to take my inside leg, my supporting leg, tendu derriere. I'm going to plie, brush, and come forward. Plie, brush, okay? So that will help with that motion. Obviously, I have to use the leg to get the leg straight, right? So the quadricep motion, battement derriere, is a little bit different. Couple things real quick. Make sure when you're doing your battement derriere that your weight is still forward. What I mean by that, remember how we talked about the weight being on the ball of your foot? You don't want the leg to go back, that your toe comes up, or that it shoves the supporting knee back and you're hyperextending. So what I mean by that is I see sometimes where somebody will do a battement derriere and their hip will go back and it'll hyperextend the knee. And if you can see, my toes are coming up. So you still have to stay on top of that leg when you are doing your battement. And this actually helps when you're forward already. It will keep your body forward, okay? The next important thing with a battement derriere, and we've been talking about this with our turnout, with our tendus and our dégagés, is making sure, obviously the leg is turned out, but lengthening through that leg. Because I've seen this in older dancers where maybe they were taught not to really pay attention to that, or the leg was either out here or the leg was turned under. The force of the leg going up can cause the knee to buckle, the knee to bend. So if you see maybe somebody with their battement kind of pops a little bit, that is the force of the leg going up and the leg not being turned out. So think about it. If my leg is properly turned out, when I lift it up with force, either I'm doing a leap or a battement, it doesn't bend that way. My leg does not bend in that position, right? However, if my leg is turned under, then nothing is really stopping this if I don't have any control of that bottom half of my leg popping up, right? So that is something you really have to work on to make sure that those beginning positions, those beginning exercises are done correctly so that that higher leg. So like I said, all those things kind of lead into each other, right? The next part, going into our battements to the side, to your side also. When we have talked about your proper turnout, so starting from ballet 6 or jazz first, picking up your toes, dropping them open to your natural turnout, taking that line from your here through to out, that is my line. So that's the same thing for my battement. So my battement is going to follow that same line, right? When you are doing that, I've talked about this as an exercise. I haven't talked about it in the foundations yet. Typically, when we have advanced dancers and we are learning to do our battements, they are done behind the arm. And if you have the turnout, that is completely fine. However, if you don't have the turnout, I want your battement to be in front of your arm. 2 reasons, or more than one. Number 1 is you will either have to take that arm forward to get it there, if you are maintaining your proper turnout, right? Or you're going to twist your body. So if I maintain here, you're going to twist the supporting leg, the knee and the foot, to twist my body so my hips are actually not facing front anymore, they're facing the corner to get my leg behind my arm, right? So just keep it in front of your arm. That's totally fine. So just keep it here. Now what's kind of hard in that second position when we're doing our second battements is you got to get that feeling of the free flowing feeling and using the floor. So that's swinging motion. Same thing to your second, you have to do that as well. You have to have that brush, that pushing into the floor. So I'm thinking about pushing all of my energy down and up. I'm going down and up with my leg. So I'm pushing it down into the floor and brushing out with my leg, right? So an exercise you can do, since we can't go back and forth, and I'm going to go to a really cross position. So my leg is way crossed. And if your turnout is here, that's okay. And I'm going to brush coming into a first position and out from there, okay? So if you've done, like in jazz class, we'll do battements, those are really good, or we'll go to the side, right? So this is that same thing that you want to work on when you're doing your second battements, is cutting it to the corner and then going up. That will help with that motion, okay? Chassés into your second leap. So if you're doing a chassé, you have your plie, that leg is behind, you're going to brush and then leap from there. Same motion. Don't grip the quadriceps, because that can happen too if you're doing, say, a second leap and you grip, it's gonna stop, right? Resist gripping that leg. Another part that's a little bit hard is to say we're in a tendu position. If you say, I'm gonna do tendu, battement, tendu, close. That is a very difficult one because the quadricep is more engaged here, because you have to use your quadricep to straighten your leg, but again, I'm not forcing it down, I'm lifting. So from here, I have to think, okay, brushing up, right? Brushing up. That's another one to work on. All these are ones you have to continually work on yourself to get the feeling. It's not something, this is definitely something in dance where it's not something the teacher can fix for you. It's something that you have to say, oh, that's the feeling I need, right? So remember the things we talked about with turnout, with the brushing, and that will help tremendously with these battements. I had one more thing that I wanted to talk about with doing your battements, and that is doing an attitude battement. So this is another one that's really good with brushing and also with dealing with the quadricep. Is if somebody says, well, you can't get the leg up without straightening your knee, right? Without using that quadricep. Well, if you're doing attitudes, your leg is not straight, right? So this is an excellent exercise to work on getting the movement and getting the feeling of the leg coming up, right? So try doing some of these at the bar. These are a great one, just like the straight leg, just like the straight leg. But this is a good one for working on getting the momentum, getting the lift, getting the feeling of the swift movement, the free-flowing movement of the leg without squeezing your quadriceps. So again, if you find that you're still squeezing a little bit, try bending the knee. Now, one little word of caution is your muscles are in a different position when you're in attitude versus when you're in a straight leg position. So if you can go super high, try to be a little bit modest. Because if you're not used to going really high with a bent leg, you might pull something. So do not go super high right away. Kind of give it a little feel, and then if you feel, okay, that doesn't feel so bad, then go a little bit higher. Because your legs, like I said, those muscles are in a very different position. You're more turned out, the leg is bent, things are obviously different. Okay, when you are doing an attitude, whether you're doing an extension, a envelope, or développé, depending on how you prefer to say it. I've heard both of them used professionally, and both of them, I've heard both of them. Anyway, when you are doing your attitude, it is a fluid motion. It is not a pop, and it doesn't start too early. So it doesn't happen too early, it doesn't happen too late. What I mean by happening too early is when it comes off the floor about here and then bends up. You still go through the motion of a tendu, and then you slowly bring it in to that attitude position, and it ends in a tendu position, right? So we have our tendu, nice bend, tendu, close, tendu, nice bend, tendu, and close. The second part, when I mean it doesn't pop, is you don't come up clear into a battement and then pop it into your attitude. So when you do that, you end up actually sitting in your seat when you do that. So it's a nice fluid motion, as you're doing it. Again, with the lineup, you want to have everything in line. What I teach my students is pretend there's a tree in front of you or a tree behind you. So if you're holding an attitude, it is going to be wrapping around that tree in front of you. If you're holding an attitude derriere, it's wrapping around the tree behind you. So lots of things to think about. Give all these a try, do it on the other side, and we'll see you again next time.